Now the babbling idiot is making overtures about seizing guns and taking away our Second Amendment. And of course, they always say that's not what they're trying to do, but that's in fact all they're trying to do. You know, there's a reason why the Second Amendment follows the First Amendment. The First Amendment was our right to free speech, our right to assemble and protest. The Second Amendment is the right for you to carry a gun to protect those rights. And don't ever think for a minute that those people in the time of the Revolution didn't understand graphically who those guns were intended to intimidate. It was government. The tyranny of humans is always at the behest of government. Every single war was promulgated by government. Whether it's a maniac like Putin or a maniac like Obama, who started 7 wars after he got the Pulitzer Peace Prize before he took office. How funny is that? In 260 some odd years of American history, we have been at peace for 6 years. Do the math. That's less than 2%. We have been in a war every year of our existence, save 6 years. That ought to tell you something. Nobody ever asks you to vote on whether or not to go to war. When they decide we're going to war, you go to war. Ask most of the Vietnam vets. The phenomenon of today is that we have young people signing up for money and college educations to go into the military. Now, I'm pretty pro-military, but I got to tell you, this has become a racket. And this idiot who's going to lie to you, guns in the hands of citizenry is to protect them from the tyranny of government above all other things. And the random shooters, as bad and egregious as it is, compares nothing to what governments can do. Just look at Tiananmen Square. Go through the history. Russia killed 20 million of its own citizens. Can you get your head around that? 20 million. So, that's not, that's directly killing their own people. All you have to do is look at the last 100 years and stack up the bodies, and we're talking about literally hundreds of millions of dead. And that's not considerate of all the collateral damage, starvation, people that lose everything, refugees, disease. In most wars, 3/4 of the casualties are from disease.
From the White House about the need to disarm the population. We're going to spare you all of it. We've taken a few select sound bites that sum up the president's message. Here they are.
Second Amendment, like all other rights, is not absolute. This isn't about taking away anyone's rights. It's about protecting children. It's about protecting families. It's about protecting whole communities. It's about protecting our freedoms to go to school, to a grocery store, to a church.
Right before they bring you to a gulag, they're going to protect your freedoms. And he's hiding behind the death of children. This is a liberal. These are the people who psychobabble all day long about the imperative need for education while we pump out a majority of functional illiterates. Okay? It's basically babysitting. Because they wanted the mothers out of the house working so they could tax 2 people in every family. And if you don't believe it, look it up. Who was the benefactor of Ms. Magazine? That would be the CIA. Okay, so all you women who went and got liberated, now you're dying of heart disease and cancer at the same rates that men do. Good choice. When I was a kid, most of the women were home, and they were pretty damn happy as a group. Now, the husband goes left, the woman goes right. The children are dispersed into public schools where they are totally not safe. And these libtards that want to tell you how imperative and how important schools are, but they won't protect them. They won't put a cop there. No, won't do that. We need those cops out there chasing you around for seatbelts, cell phones, and speeding tickets, because that's really what the society hinges on. But they'll wrap themselves in all this propaganda that this is for your benefit. We're going to put you in jail, but look how safe you'll be. Right? You'll be safe in jail.
Without being shot and killed. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21.
Okay. Are you going to keep 18-year-olds from going in the military then? Because the concomitant logic is if a kid's too irresponsible at 18 to have a gun, what you going to do in a case of war? Go read the statistics of how many 18-year-old boys died fighting this country's wars. In the Civil War, it was so prodigious that it's absolutely criminal. How many kids, 16, 15, 17, butchered on battlefields for crooked governments? I'll give you an example. Abe Lincoln could have went to the South, offered them a minimum wage for all the slaves, a subsidy, until we weaned the South off of slavery. All it took was a little money, but no, they'll never do that. They don't have the money to fix society's ills, but they always could drop $50 billion on a war like in Ukraine. Magically, they have that money. Magically. We've got homelessness exploding in this country. And who's behind that? Government taxation. You go to states like New York where they have the right to literally rape you. $20,000 to live in a small Cape Cod house on Long Island. $25,000. Nobody says this is criminal. The word villain comes from medieval England. The taxation under the Normans, they were called villeins. Villainy. And they give you little nursery rhymes. Robin Hood stole from the rich and gave to the poor. That's bullshit. Robin himself was rich. He was Sir Robin of Locksley. You know what Robin did? He would watch the government villeins come to some innocent person's home and just apprehend whatever they wanted to seize in the name of taxation. And it was haphazard. It was whimsical. This year they would take 50 cows. Next year they would take 150 cows. And there was no right of redress. So what he did, Robin, was he would wait with his merry men and waylay those villeins, take the contraband back and give it back to the people who it was stolen from. So Robin didn't steal from the rich and give to the poor. Robin retook the stolen property from the government and gave it back to the people. But the government doesn't like that narrative. They like class warfare, rich against poor, black against white. That way they can gin up the passion of the people. In almost every epoch of history, whether you go back to the Trojan War, the Civil War in America, World War II, it was always about money. Socrates said, all wars are fought for money. That's 2,500 years ago. All wars are fought for money. He didn't say some wars. He said all wars. And this creep, Mr. Libtard, he's not passing a law. And by the way, prima facie, why don't they hang this kid that killed those people in Buffalo? Hang him. Publicly hang him so the whole country witnesses the proper modality for that kind of stuff. You fight fire with fire. You fight terror with terror. You want to get rid of this stuff? Stop romanticizing it. Stop putting it all over the news. Okay? John Q. Oddball got himself a semi-automatic, not an assault weapon. It's a semi-automatic weapon. And goes and kills innocent children or innocent people shopping. And I don't care what color they are. But in New York, they're prosecuting under this new law. They're bragging about it today. New law about a hate crime. I'm trying to think of what the term was. It was ridiculous. Who picks up a gun and murders people unless there's hate involved? You don't do that with love in your heart. You do that with hate in your heart. But we have to have a new category. Murder is murder. And that should be enough. But it doesn't fit their political narrative. So they have to call it a hate crime. A hate crime against who? The innocent. Perpetrated by the haters. Isn't that a joke? When you go to war and shoot your enemy, do you do that with love in your heart or hate? Every guy that was ever in a firefight in the military will tell you, you do it for your life's preservation and your buddy. That's your politics. The few guys around you. Your local cadre of buddies. Everything else is just abstract bullshit. Nobody gets up and stands once more into the breach, fellows, at the time of war. It's very linear. Most soldiers that were in firefights will tell you how alone they felt. How singularly alone they felt. With all the noise, whether it's artillery, bombs, rifle fire, they heard almost nothing but the own immediacy of the moment. So when you really understand this stuff, and this political entrepreneur prostitute here, this snick thief, Mr. Finnegan, who always finds a way through the back door where the pilfering begins. That's the legacy of Joe Biden. Lie, cheat, steal, rinse and repeat. So if you think you're going to take away our guns, Mr. Biden, you better be real careful, because there is no society as armed as this country, and the cops know it. And you don't want to unleash that kind of hell, pal. You better be real careful with your diatribe. You better start doling out justice. You better start punishing the evil criminals that do these things and leave the citizenry alone.